of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask the recording secretary for a roll call.
Dawn McKay.
Here.
Ryan Carso.
Here.
Jessica Decker.
Here.
Lori Homer.
Here.
Pam Lutfi.
Here.
Jack O'Leary. Alicia Sheehan.
Here.
Rosemary Walsh.
Here.
And John Lebleski.
I'm not sure if Jack is coming right now, because we had an injury at work.
Yeah.
He might be here, but be late.
John's sick, right? And then may I have a volunteer to read the mission statement?
I'll read it. Delaware Valley School District, in partnership with our community, stands committed to maximizing student potential, fostering lifelong learning, and promoting responsible citizenship.
Thanks, Alicia. And may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. And we have a few presentations tonight, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Bell.
Okay, thank you. We're going to open up first by introducing the Odyssey of the 9 teams that are headed to World Finals at Michigan State. And let's see where they are. Go all the way down as far as you can, kids. Let's do the elementary first. Okay, whoever coaches would like to introduce yourselves, tell us about your team, and have the kids introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lori Barcha. I am a DV grad, 1997. I'm a lawyer. I'm a scientist. And this is my own team. This is Shahola Elementary School. Division 1, Problem 1, vehicle. Their problem was to build a vehicle that had to break down into 2 suitcases. It had to function. It had to do 3 tasks. And they had to be able to take it apart, put it together again, take it apart, and put it together again. And they won first at states all across the board. Spontaneous, style, and long-term. And I could not be more proud of my kids. You can introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
I'm Claire.
You're in what grade? What grade are you in?
I'm in 3rd grade.
3rd grade.
I'm Angelica. I'm in 5th grade.
I'm Grant. I'm in 5th grade.
I'm Brooke. I'm in 3rd grade. I'm Heidi. I'm in 4th grade. I'm Emma. I'm in 5th grade.
Want to say something? They just wanted to say thank you for all of your support, and that
Thank you for supporting us on our way to Worlds.
that they wouldn't be in this position if it weren't for you. Thank you so much.
Can I tell you guys something? I teach at a college in Wilkes-Barre, and I was talking to a student who's graduating in 2 weeks. And she was doing her honors capstone presentation today. So she's an honors student and did a special big project today that she did a presentation for everybody. And then after it, she came up and she said, "You remember I went to DV?" And I said to her, "So we got talking, what was special about your experience at DV?" And the first thing she said was, "I started doing OM in 4th grade.
Really?
And I did it right through high school." What a
Wow.
great thing that was. So,
Great.
Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Stephanie, and I am the coach at Dingman Delaware Elementary School. And this is our team. We're Division 1, Problem 2, which is the technical team, where they had to create a creature that changed and hid in its environment, and it had to change 4 different times with all different technical components, which they created all on their own. A very tough year, but they pulled it out, and they came in first at states. And I've been coaching for this my 9th year, and this is the first time with the team going to Worlds. So I'm extremely proud of them. They all deserve it. And why don't you introduce yourselves?
My name's Dominic. I'm in 5th grade. I'm Riley, and I'm in 5th grade.
I'm Sophia and I'm in 4th grade.
I'm Logan and I'm in 5th grade.
I'm David and I'm in 4th grade.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
support at
Yeah.
Worlds.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for all my fifth graders, are we looking to do this again in middle
Yeah.
school?
Yes.
Yeah? Excellent. Well, thank you guys for all the hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
We're the middle school in Delaware Valley campus. Structure team.
So our problem was to design a structure and then toss it from 3 lines of our choice, 4, 7, and 10 feet. And it's under 15 grams, and he's gonna tell you how it's built.
Yeah, but first you have to do the skit. Our skit must have a carnival barker character to describe 3 games to the customers. We decided that we wanted the carnival barker character to be a lion because he's always lying to the customers by scamming them. We made an escape room that the carnival barker runs, and he lures people in to scam them out of their money. Once the carnival barker has his customers in the escape room, the customers are locked in, and they must play all 3 games in 8 minutes to get out. So this is basically the structure that we threw, and we crushed different ones at the 2 tournaments for regionals and states so far. And it's made out of balsa wood, which is like a thin wood, and it's very flexible at first. It's made out of it's 1/8 by 1/8 inch, and then it's maybe 6 inches long. And then you cut them and you build basically a structure out of it. You have to test it for how much weight it can hold by putting different levels of weights on it until it smashes.
And at the regional tournament?
At regionals, we held 665 pounds, and at states, we held 710.
Wow. So these kids are, say your name?
Carter Peerboom,
Ben Baylor, Krista Serrano,
Noel Holdred,
Abby Zimmerman.
Sienna Williams,
Isabella Bixby.
and Andrea Benson, the coach.
All right, this is the Delaware Valley Middle School technical team. I'm Coach Maureen Lockwood. I'm John Lockwood.
I'm Anna Vogel. I'm Scarlett Weir. I'm Olivia Lowell. We are Delaware Valley Middle School Technical, and our problem is to hide in plain sight. Our problem, so we have to have a creature that changes, that hides in plain sight, basically. So our first change is we have a catapult made out of PVC and sponge boards that lifts up 4 little legs and it runs in with 4 little coral.
And then the second change is it hides behind a clam with a pulley, and a worm gear and a motor, and then so Velcro it pulls up the clam to hide behind.
And then the third change is a hydraulic scissor jack with popsicle sticks and firing tubing and service. So our creature is an octopus because all of these people are pirates. He's an island native and he's staged here and I'm a seagull. So I'm the narrator and there are a bunch of pirates. So the octopus has to have a reason for the searcher character for looking for it. So the reason is that the captain has landed on a ship and has landed in the sea or sand, and she really wants to open her treasure, and she's not really good with keys, so she fumbles around and she drops it, and then the octopus steals it.
So we have to search for the octopus, but he hides in plain sight with these 3 changes, and it finally reveals its true self as
Stephen squawking. The pirate captain's beloved bird. Yeah. You guys want to say how the last changes?
So the first head has the hydraulic scissor jack in it, which makes it grow and shrink. And then we replace it with another head in the middle of the skit, and it's in two halves, and then the bird is in the middle, and then it splits in half and it reveals it.
Yeah, we made a bunch of different props, and one of our props is the ship setting, and we like cut up quartz and put it on like the wheels, we made a wheel out of quartz, and then we added it for safe on the side of the ship. We made even a barrel out of quartz, and now we're adding it on the mast for worlds. So,
And we have a thank you that was signed by all 7 teams.
Yeah, so it took her 10 cents.
That'll be her.
Now raise your hand if you've been to Rose before.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. And I didn't get a chance on stage, but you guys were amazing at regionals. In fact, when you guys were piling the weights on, I actually thought it was gonna end up being too tall. Somebody on your group was piling the weights on, putting the weight up over the head, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't think I'm gonna reach it.
I couldn't reach it.
Nice read for me from the spontaneous room at regional.
Yeah.
Why were there some groans in there?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything.
No, she said.
And that's what it is.
Oh, it's just up? Okay. You can set it back up.
Sure.
Wrap it around. Davidson. Is everybody?
You guys want to kick off anything, or want to just go team by team?
Well, we are Delaware Valley School District, Odyssey of the Money Teams.
Hi.
Structure, performance, and vehicle in order.
If the kids want to just go down the line and introduce yourselves, and then after everybody's introduced themselves, then we can tell us about your 3 problems.
I'm Lucas, UC from the structure.
I'm Anna Baylor, I'm also on structure. I'm Liz Morris, I'm also in structure. I'm Levi McCollum, I'm also on structure. I'm Luan Felix, I am structure. I'm Pauline Stefanic, and I'm on the structure team too.
I'm Tobias Shedd, I'm on theatrical.
I'm Riley Zukowski, and I'm also on theatrical. I'm Miriam Denholzer, and I'm on the theatrical team.
I am Natalia Lishka, and I'm on the theatrical team. I'm Gabrielle Quagliosi, and I'm also on the theatrical team.
I'm Grace Lishka, and I'm on the vehicle team. I'm Liz Kameen, and I'm on the vehicle team.
I'm Chris Stashik, and I'm on the vehicle team.
I'm Alice Kalki, and I'm on the vehicle team.
I'm Dom Puglisi, and I'm on the vehicle team.
I'm Nick Spray, I'm on the classics team. I'm kidding.
I was about to say, I was like, wait. I'm Mirabella Demo, I'm on the vehicle team.
All right, so which team wants to tell us about?
Let me just go. Oh, I'm going this way.
Okay. The name of our problem is structure toss, and we had to build a structure like this one for our competition, and we had to throw it anywhere from 4 to 10 feet over a 2-foot bar, so it lands perfectly flat on the ground, and we can't have anything to cushion it. After we throw it, we put it down the bar, and we have to put as many weights on it as it can until it completely crushes. At the state's competition, we held 665 pounds on this structure that weighs 15 grams. Yeah, nice balsa wood. And our skate had to be based around a carnival, and we were all like members in the carnival. Lucas, Nalani, and Bethany, who couldn't make it today, they crushed our structure and helped put on all the weights. I was the carnival barker.
I was the contestant who played all the games, and me and Liz were the fans. Like, we support.
And then cheer with Lon. And he came from the modern world through his TV for a commercial to go to the old Time Town Carnival.
So the carnival is in black and white, so he starts out in color, and his whole outfit is like in color, and then he takes it off the costume, and there's another underneath, and that one's all in black and white. So it shows like the change from like the modern to the old one.
Yeah, and then throughout the carnival, if I win the carnival game or if she wins the carnival game, we're allowed to gain a piece of clothing that turns back to color. So I gained my hat back in color and my socks back in color. And then on the last game, which is like a spin the wheel, we have like a house and then like a Ferris wheel to represent the carnival, and we have it so that it lands on the house, and then that means I get to go home. But it's kind of like a cliffhanger at the end, because when I fall through the tunnel to go back, I don't turn back into color, I just stay in black and white.
It's funny watching it fall through there.
Yeah.
All right, next thing.
So our problem was opposites to strength, and we had to create a skit that was purely about performing. We had to make a skit where we had two groups who would be combined together with one idea, and then have a character come in who tried to distract the groups and make them fight against each other. And 2 times he would be successful and make the 2 groups fight and split apart. But after each fight, they would come together. And then finally, at the end, both groups realize that they've been tricked and that the character is trying to deceive them. And they figure out who he is and take him out of the group.
And it wasn't like a physical fight; it was like verbal fight. Yeah, just to clear that up.
Yeah. So basically, we solved our problem by having the most like relatable solution, which is the issue that every OM team has when trying to come up with their problem. So the 2 groups had different ideas, and they were butting heads against each other. And there was the villain, which was Lynn Security, who was a security officer supposedly in the high school, but really she was just insecure about being bad at OM, and she couldn't make a team. And our solution was just the 2 teams coming together on a compromised solution.
And we had a whole bunch of risk-taking ideas this year with Riley making a glass window out of sugar that broke on purpose, but they didn't know that. For a performance art factor, we had a puzzle cube flipping set made by Marley, who couldn't make it today, that was meant to portray like the idea process changing from one thing, oh no, we don't like that, and we'd flip it and then it would become something else, and we'd draw it and show like the process. And we had and cutting hair on stage.
I cut
live.
Riley's hair on stage. Yes, so
For
she liked that.
attention grabbing effects.
Yep.
That were required.
Yep.
It was truly hysterical.
Thank you. I was a carrot.
Good one.
So our problem was Omer to the rescue again. The basic premise of the problem was we had more or less a 2x2 box that our vehicle had to start in, disassembled. Once the problem started, we had to disassemble our vehicle, ride on a complete 2 different tasks, disassemble the vehicle, put it back in the box, move that box, reassemble it, do a final task, and then have a parade for Omer at the end. And the whole skit was based around the idea of Omer being a hero. So in our skit, Omer was launched into space, and he gets abandoned and ends up meeting constellations. So we were all different constellations. Our scenery, we had a black backdrop covered in about 10 different strands of Christmas lights, separately plugged into a power strip, that anytime a certain plug on the power strip was turned on, a different constellation would light up to represent whoever was currently out acting. Throughout the skit, we had to complete 3 different tasks. So for us, in order to make a sound, we created basically a giant music box where I cut aluminum tubing into separate pieces, so they're each separately pitched, and then as a wheel turned, it hit different notes and played Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We also had to move 2 objects, where Christian built a hydraulic arm in order to grab 2 of Cancer's crabs and return them to safety. And finally, Dom created an extending catapult to return Pisces' lost pearl. And in the end, Homer saved the day.
Any questions?
I didn't win for about 4 years when I was younger. So, I mean, the critical thinking skills you all learn, I mean, those aren't easy problems. And you all know that. So, I mean, you'll take that forever into college. How many seniors are there?
4.
Oh, wow. Out of all the teams?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
We'll
since
expect to
it's-
see you next year.
Since it's that time of year, we're getting close to graduation, can we ask the seniors, what are your post-graduation plans?
Well, it's only us. Oh wait, no, Nick's. I'm sorry. Nick, you can go.
All right. So I'll be attending Elon University as an honors fellow, and I'm majoring in music production and recording arts, and minoring or possibly double majoring in film and television.
I'm Gabrielle Quagliosi. I actually just got accepted into the school that I wanted to, my number one choice, Temple University, as a marketing major in the Fox School of Business.
I'm Miriam Denholzer, and I'm going to East Stroudsburg University to become a nurse practitioner.
Raise your hand if you've been to Rose before.
When did you guys start practicing?
October?
Yeah, right after like fall sports.
Okay. Big time commitment.
Yeah. Never telling us.
I get 3 kids that did it. I know it's a big time commitment.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all worth it. Really.
Yeah. It is.
Honestly.
Thanks to you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Make us look good.
Thank you.
Yes.
Don't get used to it, Brian.
Yes.
All right, the second presentation tonight is actually on the budget. The budget has a couple different phases. The first phase really starts in the fall with all the departments and the schools putting their budgets together. And then just picture the teachers on the different grade levels, different departments, putting all their info together. Then it compiles up to the principal's level or the director's level, and then they have to present their budgets. It was back in March and February and March, or March and April. March and April, we had the directors come and do their presentations about their pieces to the budget, which adds up to about 20% of the budget. Salaries and benefits add up to about 80% of the budget. So Bill's gonna do a brief presentation right now about salary and benefits, which is the big 80% chunk. And then after he does that, he and I will work together and we'll give you your first look at a comprehensive budget with everything put together, first glance at what it looks like.
Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna tell you that 81% of the budget is salaries and benefits, and I can be as happy as you were with the last group that presented here, but I always get to follow the fun stuff every year. Anyway, as you can see, our salaries projected for next year are $39,261,000. We're close to 47% of the budget. Fringe benefits are at $28,625,000, or nearly 34%, for a total of 80.61% of the budget is in salaries and benefits. That has creeped up just about every year. To give you an idea what that's what it's all accumulated of, the professional contract is it was a 3% increase in 1920, estimated at $788,000. There's built-in estimates for the amount of additional credits that we'll be paying for people earning additional credits. So that's $125,000. And built into the contract were projected co-curricular salary increases of $23,000. The classified or support staff was at a 50 cents an hour increase, estimated $186,000. And administration was a 2.5% increase, estimated at $75,000, for a total of about $1.2 million in salaries. That is very similar to what you've been seeing over the last many years. What we've had as far as salary reductions go, during the year, during 18-19, we had some people that left. So the net effect of all that was about $25,000 reduction. For next year, the people who have advised us that they are not returning, and we were able to replace them with a lower salary, or the $350,000 also includes 2 high school positions who we had people retire who are not being replaced. And one additional note is we'll get to this a little bit later, was there was 2 additional proposed positions that were eliminated, not part of this draft of the budget that you're going to see. Do you want to speak to that, John?
Remember our last meeting, I mentioned about how we were over the 3.1% and we had to work to get it down to 3.1. In the original draft budget, we were going to cut 2 positions in the high school through retirements, and we were going to add 2 positions. We were going to add a 5th grade teacher for Shahola, and we were going to add a special ed teacher for itinerant autistic support at DB Middle. So that would have been a wash. We would have cut 2 and added 2. Thanks to the work of the high school working really hard on their schedule, they were able to not only cut the math and the science positions that are mentioned, but they were able to tighten up their schedule so that they could give up a special ed teacher to go to the elementary, or to go to the middle school, and they were able to free up an elementary teacher to go down to the middle school to pick up the slack there. So in essence, what we're doing is we are eliminating 4 positions. So it was going to be cut 2, add 2, would have been a wash, but with the help of the high school, now we're shedding 4 positions, 2 that were in the budget this year and 2 that were in the budget last time we talked, but now they were able to cut them back out of the budget. So that's certainly a help, because that's almost 400,000, when you think about it.
Support staff, due to some attrition, of $28,509, and administrative staff due to attrition, $14,869. So to offset the previous slide, you'll see decreases of $418,000.
So this is part of how we close that gap. We were at 4.whatever%, trying to get it down to 3.1 is closing the gap with these salary decreases.
And those 4 positions are at 418?
Yes.
Or 2?
Well,
because Bill, I thought.
Technically 2, because the other 2 were never added in.
Right, they were going to be on top, and now we were able to keep them out.
Right, we were able to.
So who's going to the Shahola position?
It'll
Is
have
it somebody that's already on staff?
Or it will be one of the new people, because we have several elementary retirements.
There's only 1 new position then for 2019-20. It's the custodian for the additional area in the career and tech ed areas that it's being built. And the good news is our cafeteria operation, I'm projecting with Justin's help that we will be able to begin reimbursing again for the custodial time in each of the cafeterias. That will money come back from the cafeteria to offset some of that. So the net effect of the new positions ends up being a $19,000 increase is what's proposed. As far as employee benefits, the retirement expense, and there's a couple slides I have regarding retirement, $555,000, health insurance, $489,000, workers' comp, our experience mod got better, which is a good thing. I'm expecting, and those quotes I don't get until end of May, early June, but the projection from the insurance agent is a $78,000 decrease. And Social Security's increase in $60,000 due to the increase in wages. So the benefits are increasing over $1 million at $1,026,000. The retirement rate last year was for the year we're in is 33.43%. Next year, 34.29. increasing, and these are estimates once you get past 1920, because if they do really good under investments, if they do, sometimes that rate goes down. If they don't do so well, that might tweak up. But it's projected to go to 34.77, 35.19, 35.84, and 36.3% of wages.
We're not projecting a crest anywhere.
No.
No.
Well, not yet. Matter of fact, with the new law, they can only go out this far, supposedly, with their projections. I mean, they used to do wilder things, but this is as far as you can see projections now that they'll give you. And just understand that on the revenue side of the budget, schools get anywhere between, they get at least 50%, and it depends on your market value aid ratio formula. It's a little bit complicated, but we get from the state 56.5 roughly percent reimbursed of this expense on the revenue side. But the total amount, the full amount's got to go on the expenditure side for all the accounting and auditing guidelines, and on the revenue side, we then get 56.5% or thereabouts back. That's a complicated formula, but I estimated at 56.5. Just to give you an idea, kind of what that means is I took a look at how much of a net effect that means, meaning you put these are the percentages you saw. I took a projection on the salaries, the 56.5% reimbursement, and then you end up with a net employer cost there. And year to year, you can see going from 1819 to 1920, it's about $244,000 cost increase to the school district. And you can see as the rate doesn't go up quite as much in future year, you can see it still hovers around the $200,000 to $250,000 mark. And again, they're all estimates. The percentage of reimbursement's an estimate. The payroll estimates are because they're based on some attrition and just some pretty much guesses, but it just gives you a basic idea there. And just the impact that the PSERS or the retirement has on the budget. If you take your total budget, and you'll eventually see in the next presentation that the total expenditure increase is about $2.3 million, which is a 2.78% on the expenditure side. If you did not factor in the pension cost, it would end up being about a 2.1% if your pension was flat. So that's how it affects the budget. Any questions on salaries and benefits before now we're going to go right into kind of the whole budget put together from the presentations you've seen over the last few months to now that includes the salaries and benefits. Now, John will take over for a bit here.
And we used to do this full budget presentation at the May work session, but I don't know if it was a year or 2 years ago. You guys had asked if we would move it to the April board meeting so that you'd have more time. So the idea is we'll give you the first glance at the full budget. We'll talk to you about tax rates. We'll talk to you about some things that you might want to consider if you're looking to lower the tax rate. And then we can really roll up our sleeve. You'll have some time to take it home and digest it. And then we can devote the whole May work session to working on trying to get the budget to a place that the majority of the group is happy with it so that we can vote on it at the May meeting. So it's a process, but it's nice. I really like the idea when you guys decided to move it to April, because it gives you another couple of weeks to like soak it all in, because it's $84 or $85 million. It's a little overwhelming. So it is neat to have that luxury. Okay, we'll eventually put this up on the website as well as a presentation. There's our list of our board administrators. This is a look at our enrollment starting back in 1983, 84. If you look at that, we only had 1,600 students in the whole district back then. Now we have almost that much in the high school alone. So it's amazing to see the escalation. And then after 9/11, we had a huge jump. And then after the recession hit, we fell back to pretty much where we were prior to everybody exiting the city and moving out. So we saw an increase of almost 1,000 kids in a decade, and then a loss of that 1,000 kids in the next decade. So when I talk to other superintendents in the state, they're like, wait a minute, really? You've gone up 1,000 and down 1,000 in the 21st century? And it just blows people's minds. And I said, yeah. And thankfully, we didn't build any new schools, extra schools, because there are other districts that had that kind of growth, and they built schools, and then they had the same drop off that we had. And now they're saying, what do we do? Because they've got too much space. So we were lucky that we never did anything like a second high school or something like that, which would have been over $100 million. So that wouldn't have been good. This is a look at the enrollment by building. So you've got the 7 schools, the cyber academy, kids that are placed out at other educational agencies. And it doesn't include the pre-K program or anything like that. These are some of the things that we did when I told you at the work session 2 weeks ago that we still had a lot of work to do just to get it down. The legal limit says that the index is 3.1%. That's the most that you can raise taxes under Act 1. So we still have a lot of work to get it down to that 3.1. So some of the things we did, this is how much when we started our work, and we were in the middle of that work when we had the work session 2 weeks ago. We were $1 million over. So we had to find a way to close a gap of $1 million. I had mentioned being able to transfer a teacher to fulfill the issue that we have in Shohola with the super large classes that they're at 30 and 31 right now. Instead of having a new teacher, we can just transfer someone. So that'll save us. And then the same thing, instead of hiring a new teacher for the new position at the middle school, we can transfer someone from the high school. So that's a saving of over $180,000 right there. And that would help. So that's where we were on April 11th. We were down to 825. And then we have a couple of things. Billy's going to talk about some of the changes. So that's how we cut some major expenses. Here's some things that we did on the revenue side.
Okay, and the reason for the timing, even like April 1st, it's one of the big events that happens is which teachers are retiring. So you have an idea of how many positions that you do have a reduction in salary. So like in the second and third week of March is when we get that information finally. I mean, you get an idea, sometimes you hear somebody's retiring, but they kind of have to make their moves by then. So that's why this time frame comes important. So when we knew we had to get creative, and I got to look a lot of places. One of the places I looked was the assessed value is I get notices every month from the records every month from the Pike County Assessment Office. And I just tweaked my projection of how much this number is, how much I had 0.3% in there for the projected amount of increase in assessed value that was newly added on since the taxes went out last summer. I increased that to 0.35 based upon the most recent report I got. It increased our revenues by $22,000. We've been trying to get our delinquent tax number correct in our budget for a lot of years. This year, what happened was our current collection of real estate taxes, we did not hit what we did the year before. And there was a large taxpayer that had paid in prior years that didn't pay, that I got to get down to the index. I'm taking the chance that they're going to have to pay their taxes next year. Now, there's a little bit more time before you would go to tax sale, but my hope is that they pay their taxes. They didn't pay them at current, so hopefully it comes in under delinquent. That's $120,000. When I was looking at the governor's proposed budget, the new funding formula that the state put in, there's different factors for poverty, enrollment, and they have a thing for local effort. Some of the factors in the formula, we really are not considered a poverty area. So you can't just go say that that's the amount of money you're going to get. All those factors play into it. So when the governor come out with his number, I try and back off of that number a little bit based on the formula changes that come out for poverty and local effort and things like that. So when I backed off of that, I decided I got to be a little bit more aggressive before I backed off of. So I added $35,000 to what we're hoping the legislators approve in the budget. Same thing with the special ed subsidy, and it's the same type of thing with the formula, and but also based on the severity of the number of children, but the problem with that is it's based on the severity and number of children across the state too. So you really don't know the exact number, but I became a little more aggressive with the governor's proposal and added $28,000. On the expenditure side, I made a budget adjustment for co-curricular salaries. It's not a cut or anything. It was just trying to look at actuals through the years compared to what that came in the various budgets. And I made a judgment to drop that based upon historical numbers. And that would be the same thing with the extra instructional salaries for some of the part-time things that teachers are doing, assisting students, to try and get it closer to what may have been happening annually. I worry about it a little bit because it's risky because it could change, but I have to get the budget down to the index, so I was willing to take that risk. The technology budget, since it's been presented, John and Gina had a discussion, and Gina was able to have the existing Chromebooks for an additional year, extended for an additional year. So we reduced the budget by $24,000 there. We're utilizing online resources for some instructional supplies that were going to be purchased for $9,000. We're going to utilize the expertise of district staff instead of going outside for staff development for $11,000. Budgetary reserve, last year we had decreased it to $150,000. This budget's being presented takes it down to $100,000. And the health insurance trust, I'm planning on using $455,000 of reserves that are in the trust to bring the budget down to zero. Means we now are at the 3.1 index in the budget we just presented. Any questions on how we kind of got to where we are today?
How much of last year's budgetary reserve did we use for?
I'm sorry.
How much of last year's budgetary reserve did we use?
Actually, we did not use it yet. However, remember we hired the additional teacher at Chihola, but I'm hoping some of those changes through the year, we still may make that up, meaning in other salaries, because we have $38 million worth of salaries with people on leaves and various things that occur. So we may or may not need it for that purpose. However, remember our cyber school issue of having more. So most likely it may be needed for the cyber school situation. But typically, I think we'll do that in June. Like I'll keep an eye on it. Gives me a month or two and make a recommendation for us to move that money in June for the year we're in. Major revenue changes on local sources now. Understand there's local, state, and federal are our three types of revenues. The delinquent tax number now, after I've made that 120 adjustment, it's projected to be, we're taking the budget down $100,000. I don't believe we're going to make our budget again this year. Won't know till July 8th. So, but I'm dropping that 100,000. Real estate transfer increasing 30. Interest earnings, we had a pretty good year interest rate wise since the market's gotten better. And so our budget was a little, I mentioned the real estate taxes came in lower than our projected collection rate. Our interest earnings, I'm hoping, are going to make that up in the year we're in. And then to adjust the budget for next year, $197,000. And our IDEA grant was up $67,000. The net result of what I had discussed before is we're projecting that with the governor's budget and the legislation approving it, and again, we won't know probably until the end of June what it actually comes out to be, but we're projecting a $224,000 increase, special ed 88, pre-K counts 42,500, and no major changes in federal revenues. I will mention the federal budget once again, and it's not just President Trump, President Obama did it too. We have $700,000 for the federal lands here that the federal government gives us. the presidents over the last many years have put their budget out there to eliminate that 700,000, not just ours, but I mean all federal property monies. The House and Senate have put it back in. We just gotta hope that that continues to happen, because it's not only ours, but there's the properties that have military bases on them. But I have to mention that the first draft of the president's budget has it being eliminated, but that has been the case for many years, and the House and Senate has put it back in. So I certainly hope it happens again. And that budget doesn't start till October 1st. So you're not going to know this before you have to make your decision. Now these revenues increase only because the expense side increases. So I just wanted to make a point that the Social Security and retirement increases, but so didn't the expense side, which the state tries to make it look like they give us more money. They do, but it's because of the high expense of the retirement rate. So when you look at the amount, if you look at the salaries, benefits, cost, and then you look at the kind of the true revenue. So let's say you might get 200,000 out of this and 350, and this is probably an aggressive year because Governor Wolf has been very good to education. So when you think about the the almost $2 million worth of salaries and benefits on the expense side, with only 500,000 roughly on the revenue side to offset it, you can see the problem that we have with expenses versus revenues, because there's no place to get additional revenues except for a tax increase or to reduce or cut programs. So this budget, as proposed, has a tax increase of 3.1%, which is about just over $1.4 million. The adjustments here is, I mentioned that the collection rate that was in, this is all budget to budget. So the previous year's budget, we had a collection rate of 93.17%. It actually came in at 92.69. Our assessed value estimated to begin last year was at 0.25. The actual ended up being a 0.17. The increase in assessed value that I mentioned before that I projected at 0.35. And then the homestead farmstead adjustments are some properties might not have been on the rolls for their property tax money. And then, there's a little bit of play in the money there, but the net effect of all of that stuff there was $81,000. So the budget technically increased $1,336,000 if there was a 3.1% tax increase. Now, I'm going to try and make it feel a little bit better, because it doesn't, when I say feel better, it's like there's so many things that the board and administration cannot control. And I keep this history up here because there was a time when we almost got 900,000. We've actually, if you go back further, it's even higher than that. Our assessed value when we were growing and building, we were able to get, like I said, almost $900,000 due to new assessed value being built in our communities. And now looking through the years, it just has just gone down. So it's just unfortunate, and I feel like the board's in an awful spot for some of these things because they can't control that. But you can see what a difference the amount of growth in building does to the budget. Collection rate is a big factor too. Now we were at 93.10 actual in 17-18, and that's why we went to 93.17. We tweaked it up, being a little optimistic, and that actually come in at 92.69. This budget, I did it the same 92.69 as actually happened this year. Now that's a number we do already know because the taxes all have to come in by January 31st or February 15th. The tax collectors have collected everything on the current real estate. If they do not pay, it goes to the delinquent tax office to be collected. So that's a number we do have. And this is just a pie chart of the revenues. Did you want to take over from here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So you'll see local revenue is 59%, federal is 2%, and 38% is state. This is higher than it's been in a long time, but part of the reason why it's higher is our retirement costs keep going up, so they have to keep reimbursing us at 56%. So it looks like they're giving us more money, but it really is just reimbursement for all the extra money we have to pay into the pension system. It's not more money that goes into the kids in the classroom. And then this shows you, instead of a pie chart, here's a bar graph that shows you. See, we used to have local at 68%, and now we're at 59%, but nobody's taxes ever went down, and we're not getting any more money per se when you factor out what they're putting into PSERS. It's not more money, it's just more money overall to cover the expenses because they didn't put enough money into the retirement system. Again, this is that slide. Some of these slides are a duplicate because they were in the salary and benefits presentation. Now they're in the larger, full comprehensive budget presentation. So almost 81%. And there you see your increases, your salary increases that Bill talked about before. It's 1.97 million. Then we were able to carve out 418,000 to try to lower that increase. Then the one new position netted out at 19. There's your benefits again, $1 million increase total. And then this one, we talked last meeting about what are the things that drive the budget cost up every year. Well, it's always, it's always salary and benefits. But the other thing this year is, look at this, our cyber charter school tuition is going to jump almost $250,000 from this year to next because of the number of kids going out to cyber charters. And we're up now, for those people that don't come often, we're up to almost $1.3 million of local tax money that people pay their taxes. It comes into us and we give it to these cyber schools, these online schools. There is no accountability, no rules for these schools. It's the Wild West of education. When I came back to Pennsylvania in 2012, I was shocked that all this tax money flows right out. We collect it, it goes right out our door and goes to all these scam situations, and they are scams. There's no doubt about it. There isn't a single cyber charter school in the state, and there's tens and tens of thousands of kids in them, but there isn't a single one that's had a passing grade on our SPP performance, which is every school gets a 0 to 100 score. There's never been a cyber charter that's had a passing score, but there's just millions and millions and millions of dollars of public school taxpayer money that's going into these private entities. There's a woman, just as an example, there's a woman down in Philadelphia who's the executive director of 2 different charter schools. She makes $500,000 from one of them, and she gets paid $600,000 from the other. Well, that's 1.1 million of taxpayer money going to this lady. And the scam, it's just unbelievable. And there's all kinds of legislation right now to fix the cyber charter mess. And one of the bills out there that says if your school district has a cyber program like we do, that kids would not be allowed to go out to other cybers that are unbelievably expensive. Some are $20,000 and $30,000 and $40,000 a kid, whereas we can do it for less than $5,000 a kid. So if that bill were to pass, we would save $1 million. Right there, we'd have $1 million to spend on our kids and not have to raise taxes at all if that were to pass. Thus, Republicans in the Senate are in bed with cyber schools. So we have to overcome that. That's basically our initiative. All the educational organizations around the state, the school boards, the administrators, the state teachers union, everybody is to try to get a bill passed to fix cyber, because there are districts that pay $3, $4, $5 million a year to these cyber charters because the cost that they charge us is exorbitant. So that would be $1.3 million that we would get back like that if we could get a bill through the Senate. I think we can get it through the House. I don't know if we can get it through the Senate, but it might be enough that we might knock some of these people off if they don't support it.
And some of the resolutions that we have to consider, we probably won't be actually moving on those until May.
There's 2 on tonight.
2 on tonight,
Yeah.
and the other one for May.
And the other one we could do for May if you want it. Yeah. And the 2 tonight are about cyber, and then the other one that Dawn found today and sent to us, which we put in your folders, that's about getting the state, because the one issue is that we have all this money that comes in and flows right out the back door to cyber charters. Like I said, 1.3 million of our tax dollars. The other issue is that Pennsylvania does such a horrible job at helping support local schools. Pennsylvania is ranked number 46 out of 50 in terms of state money that helps support local school districts. 46 out of 50. And that's what that other resolution is, to say the state needs to step up to the plate because it's all falling on the local taxpayers because the state's not carrying their weight. They're the two biggest things because money, it all comes down to money of what do you have to fund and what can't you fund. The next thing are proposed new courses or new textbooks, which we'll show you. There's 2 new courses. We had mentioned there was a large article and a press release in the paper about the new AP program that would be coming in, the new AP seminar and AP research. That would be 11th grade, and then the next year would be the following year would be part 2, which would be in 12th grade. And then there's an elective American military history, which is an elective half-year course in social studies. The textbooks that are being replaced this year, you'll see it's French 1, 2, and 3, AP psychology, of course, a new book for American military history, anatomy, physiology book, a business communications book, food services 1, 2, and 3, business and marketing 1, 2, and 3, and then down here, middle school science, and then our English language learners book. So that's the new proposed textbooks that are in the budget. Yeah, this way you saw this before. This is the major reduction, some of the major reductions that we did in expenditures outside of salary and benefits. We took 50,000 out of budgetary reserve. We took 26,000 out of co-curricular salaries, 17 grand out of extra instructional salaries, almost 25 grand out of technology, and 20,000 out of supply. So we haven't really touched some of those budgets that are formula driven, like the principal's budgets. But now we've gone back through a whole host of lines where the budget amount and the actual amount, there was enough of a discrepancy that we could go steal the difference. And that's what we're doing here. So this affects all the school budgets as well. You want debt service? Your favorite thing?
Going in the right direction anyway.
Yeah.
Debt service from this year's budget to next year's budget is flat. We're pretty much going to be flat over the next so many years because of the way our debt was structured. The one thing that needs to come every year is we've been using 160,000 out of the internal service fund. So if you approve the budget as it is, that will again occur. And that amount can still be used throughout the length of the term of our bond issue. But the good news is back in 09-10, our debt was at $6.3 million. Our debt is at $3 million now. And we've really, we built a new school. We've done a lot of projects. We got CTE, the Career and Tech Ed going on now. So that's a good thing compared to a lot of school districts. So we kudos to the board and for the way the debt's been managed through the years.
So a question,
Yes.
how come the debt service is so high in those first 2 years on the list?
The first 2 years, paying off debt from previous building.
So you see the first 4 years, it's going
Yeah.
down until it eventually got to zero. So we paid off the debt and then we have new debt because of the new school and the gym project and the CTE project.
Right.
It was going down to zero and then it went back when we had to get the new debt.
So there's the look at if we continue to use the internal service fund, which we have, that when we get to 2029-30, when the debt is ending, we will have exhausted that 160,000. But I think it's a wise move to continue to pay that 160 towards our debt. Now the total proposed final budget, all put together, the local revenues are at 49, almost $50 million. State revenues, 32,600,000. Federal revenues, 1,700,000, for a total of $84.2 million, which is a balanced budget at the draft budget. Wayne, I want to talk about is a 3.1 tax increase, which would put the millage rate at 114.14.
Okay. So in the last 11 years, 7 out of the last 11, we've had a 0% tax increase, which is pretty amazing because it's very rare to find a school that's able to do that. We've been very fortunate for a whole variety of reasons to pull that off. The only bad part about it is sometimes people get so used to the zero that they think it'll never move. And our biggest problem right now is if our expenses are growing at 2 million a year and raising taxes to the index only generates about 1.2 million, you're about 800,000 short every year. And if enrollment didn't continue to decrease, where would we find that money? With the enrollment decrease, we've been able to cut positions. But if our enrollment starts turning around and starts going up, we're going to have a gap of 800,000 between our increasing expenses versus our increasing revenues. And what's going to happen is what I really fear is a couple years down the road, if we continue and not increase our revenue, if we don't find a way to increase our revenues, and we've only increased them 4 times in 11 years, if we don't find ways to increase our revenues, we're seeing it happen with other districts. Right now, there was just an article about Carbondale in the paper the other day, up in the Scranton area, and there was an article about Menacing Valley just across the river in New York. Is what happened is once they could no longer, what happened is their expenses were going up more than the index. So what happens is all of a sudden they're in a bind without being able to trim positions and things like that through attrition. They have to start laying people off. And Carbondale just announced that they're doing quite a few layoffs, and they're going to have planned layoffs for the next 3 or 4 years. So I just wanted to tell the board that we have to be very cognizant that we can't always balance these budgets every year just by cutting expenses. If we continued year after year after year to not raise any revenue whatsoever, one year I'm going to come to you and say, guys, we're up the creek. We've pulled every rabbit out of the hat we could in terms of expenditures, and now things are turning around because enrollment's going up. Now remember, enrollment going up doesn't necessarily generate any extra tax revenue. If there's a house and it's paying $3,000 in school taxes and there's an older couple in it, and they sell to a family with 3 kids, we now have to pay for 3 kids, but we don't anymore, the taxes don't go up. So we have to be cognizant of that. Same thing if there are empty houses that start getting to be occupied again by families. They're owned by the bank and someone buys them. So I just wanted to say, while it's great to be able to say that we've pulled off a 0 7 out of the last 11, there is a danger to that because people get used to a 0 and the people in the community expect that it will always be a 0. And my word to you is that if it's always a 0, we will have mass layoffs in the coming years. So we always have to be cognizant of how do we get a little bit of revenue so that we can increase our revenue base. Otherwise, we're going to be up the creek in a couple of years. Here's the millage rate that goes with that, with the 7 out of 11 years of no tax increase. This one would be if we did the full 3.1. So this could be adjusted. Who knows where this is going to end up. And for the average home, if you did the full 3.1% tax increase, the average homeowner would pay $98 more this year. And certainly there's a sliding scale based on whatever tax rate or tax increase we were to work on it over the next couple of weeks. But so it's just under $100 per household. And Bill's going to talk to you about some of the things that have happened to help us over the last X number of years, particularly with the tax rate.
Yeah, I mentioned that the boards can't control the assessed value, but the current board didn't have the advantage that some previous boards did is regarding the reasons why we did not have to have, or some of the reasons why we didn't have to have a tax increase through the years. I mean, I actually pulled this slide from a 2014 presentation just because I thought it's important to recall the opportunities that are not available to the board administration like they were in the past. The Governor Rendell administration had a funding stream called the costing out study, and what that really was, the bottom line of that, we received additional money in a couple years there, and as much as $2 million, but it was based on the fact that we were a very good performing school at a very low cost. So our low cost per pupil is the reason why we were able to get those additional funds from what they called the costing out study. That they did not continue that after the administrations had changed. Then if you recall, in 2009, 2010, there was federal stimulus money that was given to school districts. Now, where we were smart and some schools weren't, where we spent that on one-time things, because when that money dried up, you still have your ongoing salaries and benefits. So we use that opportunity to buy new textbooks and take our budgets and looked at what types of purchases are one-time purchases. And then we were able to fund those types of things through that and then have no tax increase for those years. And then you'll see the debt reduction. If you saw, we went from 6 million down, now we're down to 3 million. Through those years, as a reducing debt, we were able to keep the debt at a certain spot where we're able to do the projects we needed to do, but it helped us not have to do a tax increase during those years. There were salary freezes in 2 of those years. We had staff attrition, but in those days, we were reducing enrollment a lot more. We're slightly reducing now, but back then we were able to reduce staff by attrition. Thank God we never had to lay anybody off, but we were able to not replace more positions, which meant we did not have to raise taxes. And then there was other times where it was used to minimize the tax increase, just to like stay within the index. And again, we had some more debt service reduction. Yes, we have some basic education funding this year coming up too. So some of these, we do have some staff attrition. So not all of these pertain, but there's been different reasons why we were able to not have tax increases that this board and administration does not have the luxury of having.
This is a slide we show every year just to give you some comparisons. Here's Social Security cost of living adjustments over the last X number of years. So the cost of living adjustments over this time period have increased 21%. The consumer price index has increased 22%. So they're pretty close to each other. They're only off by about 0.5%. If we had gone to the index, we raised taxes to the index every year. Thankfully, we didn't. But if we would have, taxes would be 42% higher right now if we had gone every year. This shows what we actually did every year. So we could have gone up 41% under the law, which would have been double the cost of living and what seniors were getting in extra funds. But instead of 41%, we've only done 11.5% over those years. So that, I mean, it's something to be proud of. There's no two ways about it. It's proud that we've been able to do that. Billy showed you a lot of the rabbits that gave us that we could pull out of the hat to do it. Unfortunately, we're at a point now where the rabbits, even though rabbits multiply quickly, they must have moved, along with all those students. This one, Billy loves this one because it shows, with our frugalness, even though we have very good performance and we're considered one of the highest performing districts, these are all the districts in IU 20 on a cost per pupil. So we spend less per kid than anybody else in IU 20. You'll see it ranges anywhere with us at 14,400 all the way up to 19,200. Some people are proud of that. Some people don't like it because they don't want us to be the cheapest. This is an interesting one. We got this a few years ago. This came out of Education Week, the magazine. It's a weekly newspaper that comes out about national educational issues. This is the national average of the amount of money spent per pupil. If you're going in this direction, you're spending less per pupil. If you're going this way, you're spending more than the national average. And you'll see, look how dark New York State is, and most of New Jersey, and there are pockets of Pennsylvania. But I don't know if you could see here, but there's one little orange speck, and that's Delaware Valley. We're that one little teeny orange speck, and look at everybody around us, how dark they are. What I call the 84 corridor, the 84 corridor schools, Wallenpauck, Pack, Honesdale, Western Wayne, the ones at North Pocono, they're all dark, and then we're right there. So, and this is a better picture of it. So it was pretty cool to see that in a national magazine and say, holy cow, that's us, that little teeny dot. Now, it's funny when you see the different rankings for academics, sometimes you'll see a push pin of all the schools around the state of Pennsylvania, and they'll show the schools that are on the U.S. News and World Report, America's best high schools. And there might be 20 or 25 high schools in Pennsylvania, and there'll be all these little push pins where those schools lie. And about 19 of them will either be suburban Philly or suburban Pittsburgh, and then there'll be one push pin up here. So we're the cheapest, but we're still the highest performer. There's nobody else in Northeast PA that's ever represented on that list of high performing schools on the US News list. So that's pretty cool. So we do have lots, even though budget is a tough time of year and it's hard, there are certainly things to be proud of. This year, the PDE index that you could raise taxes, the state average was 2.3, but then there's a formula for each individual district, and ours is 3.1. So what we've done with this budget in the last couple of weeks is to drive our budget down with those various revenue increases and expenditure decreases, to drive it down to get to that 3.1. These are the estimates from PDE of what the state index is going to be, and this is what our indexes are estimated to be for the next couple of years. So as you see the economy getting better, you see that's creeping up, and so does ours. You know, we had some years where it was 2.8, 2.5, things of that nature. But as the economy picks up, you're seeing that there's more slack there, you know, which is certainly good for us in the future, because if we're in a jam, it gives us some flexibility. It doesn't mean you have to, but at least it doesn't tie your hands that you can't go that high. Billy shows this slide every year. These are all the balls in the air, the bouncing balls in the air that go on as we try to juggle all the numbers, both externally and internally, in crafting a budget. And there'll be a multitude of things that'll happen between now and June too. You know, you remember last year, every time we turned around, there was something else going on. We got more money here, we got less money there. This person was a late retirement that we didn't expect, you know, things of that nature. So that's all the different things that we're always juggling as we try to put this budget together. And you know what it's like doing your home budget. Imagine trying to do it at 84 million, especially when you have outside influences that you don't know what the numbers are going to be. You don't have a state budget till July 1. You don't have a federal budget till October 1. Now, this is the last slide. This is just to give you some ideas of where we might go with the tax rate. Right now, as I said, the index is 3.1. If you said, okay, we're not happy with 3.1, these are half point increments. See, so if you were to cut the tax increase from 3.1 to 2.5, you'd have to cut 274,000. If you wanted to cut it all the way down to 2, you'd have to cut $500,000. If you want to cut it to 1.5, you'd have to cut 730,000. If you wanted to get it all the way down to a 1%, you'd have to cut 960. If you wanted to get a 0.5%, you'd have to cut it almost 1.2 million. And if you wanted no tax increase, you'd have to cut 1.4 million. So that's the chart, just to give you an idea of, okay, if I can't support this, where am I, and how much where will the board coalesce around a number, and how much money is the board going to have to cut to get to that number? So that's just kind of a cheat sheet, because I imagine when we were in the work session, we're going to be talking about all these different things. Is this in? Is this out? Is this in? Is this out? And so you'll have a cheat sheet of cost of things, and then you'll have this cheat sheet to refer to figure out where it's landing us. Wayne?
I'm just thinking, I might be a little off on this, but to cut $274,000 based strictly on median figures, that's going to save the homeowner increase of $98. It's just going to lower it to about $80.
Right, you're going to trim it 0.5%.
Yeah, for 0.5%. Yeah. But even more for the right column of making up that $274,000 is going to save the average quote unquote average homeowner about $18.
So now this gives you a ballpark of it. As you figure out where you're comfortable in here, it shows you how much you're going to have to cut to get to your comfort number. So I thought this would help you going through the next couple of weeks to give you an idea of this means this, and this means this, and this means this, and so on.
In your books, the PowerPoint presentations are there. There's also supplemental information. For if you have any questions about that, you can ask us. Now, the one thing I did put together, and John and I talked about this, I just wanted to hand out. It's too small to put on the PowerPoint. If you would just hand it down for me, please. Thank you.
too small for a PowerPoint?
Well, I wanted to put it on one page.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Everybody got one? I just wanted to, I mentioned up here whereby there's, the problem that we have is the expenses going up and the revenues not being enough to cover it. So I kind of put, in its draft form, I mean, these, you don't hold me total these numbers, but on the right-hand side, it's pretty much what last year's budget looked like. And on the left-hand side is what next year's budget kind of looks like. And for example, if you look at the professional contract, it's going to be $750,000 to $800,000. So if you go all the way down that list, you'll look at some of the things. Now, one of the biggest things in the middle of the page this year was, last year we had added $60,000 for cyber charter schools. Next year, it appears we're going to need $247,000. Special ed last year, we had a reduction or planned reduction of $50,000. This year, it appeared we needed to add $200,000. I just wanted you to get a comparison, but the real crux of this handout is that I don't see it getting any better in any other year, meaning your expenditure increase, if you take the average of the 2 years, round numbers, you're going to have $2 million worth of expenditure increases. And on the bottom, not counting any tax increase, just kind of what revenues maybe ebb and flow from the real estate taxes to the assessed value increase, I should say. Some state monies probably is not, if you take the average of those two, it's like $700,000 to $750,000. So you can see that $1.3, $1.4 million just keeps sticking in our face every year. And I just wanted to get across that I don't see that getting any better. So that's the point of handing this out.
Now, the next one that Billy's going to pass around. Well, this gave you an idea of how much money you would need to cut to get to a certain percentage tax increase. This one is just a list of some items, and we didn't put it up on a PowerPoint because we didn't want to alarm anybody or anything like that. It doesn't involve laying off anybody, but it is a variety of different things that could be considered to be trimmed, either fully or partially. And what we did is we gave a whole list of things that are around the periphery of what we do, but not the core of what we do, and what the values of them are. Now, these are not in any kind of priority order or anything like that. They're not in alphabetical order either. They're just simply from the largest amount down to the smallest amount. And then, so we just identified about $375,000 worth of different things. And then below that $375,000 list are some other things that could be considered, whether they be full or partial. We didn't put any values on them, but we can put some values on them for you. But we didn't know, like, if you wanted to make some changes to some of these things, what they would be, that you may not gut them, but you may make changes to them. And I figured we could really sink our teeth into this at the work session. But I thought having this slide and having a list of things would at least get the ball rolling in your head of some potential things. Oh, that's how much that costs. Oh, that might be that may be on the bubble, So we thought these two slides would at least make you feel better prepared for us to roll up our sleeves in the work session of what we want to do, what you might want to do, what you wouldn't want to do. I didn't realize that was that much. I didn't realize that was that little, things like that. Sure.
Is this going to be made available to the public?
At the work session, we'll have conversation. Right now, it's in draft form, but at the work session, we'll have deliberation about all that stuff. So then it'll be out. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good question too. I didn't mention a time frame, and I apologize. The time frame on the legal part that the board must do is they have to put a budget out on display in May. It's on public display for 30 days. That's the budget that this is in draft form now. So there'll be discussion at the May 9th work session. It'll be a formal agenda item at the May 16th board meeting for what's called the proposed final version of the budget. That's the one then I advertise that it's on public display for 30 days. And then at the June, what is the June meeting? The
20th?
June 20th meeting, because you have to have 30 days in between. So May 16th is the proposed final budget, advertised for 30 days, and on June 20th is the final budget approval then. So they're the two terms, but that's a good question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, and just for everybody's information, a draft document is not a right to know document. If it's still in draft form, it is not in final form, so it's not a right to know document. When we deliberate some of these, people will know what's on the list as we deliberate them, and then as they get incorporated into the budget. So this piece is not a right to know document or a public document because it's still in draft form. We don't want to alarm people about anything. Questions about salaries, benefits, total budget? Sorry.
No, just for, what was the last school year of increase? Jack?
2 years ago?
2 years.
2 years ago. It was 0 last year. There was a small increase 2 years ago.
And it was 0 the year before that.
Mm-hmm. Is it 2% in between? I'm not trying to remember.
It was 2.33. It was 0 last year, 2.33, 0, 2.6 or something, and you had a 2.3 in there.
Dr. Bell, did I do
Oh,
my
yeah.
math correctly? The cyber school is almost 0.5% of the increase that we would need?
Well, it's
The extra that we have to put in this year is almost 0.5%.
well, 400,000 is a full percent of the tax. It's 460, 457. So for every 457,000 in cost, that's a tax increase of 1%. So you can see how it multiplies in a hurry.
Any other questions?
It is, isn't it? Yeah. And most states don't have cyber issues like this. This is a Pennsylvania thing.
I was just saying, at the IU20 meeting last night, and I don't know which district it was, but one of the board members said that their district pays $10 million.
Wow. I think that's Bethlehem.
Charters every year.
Yeah.
I mean, and we don't have any
Right,
control,
Bethlehem.
so that's something to think about. You know, with
Yeah.
special ed, you see the amount jumping up because we don't have control over, different needs for students and whatnot, but you can't control people going out to cyber.
Right.
So they're really, and everybody can do something about that with calling your legislators and putting pressure on them. Because it really is an issue.
Yeah, it takes money that's highly regulated about how we can spend it and turns it into highly unregulated money for them to spend however they want because they don't have any of the accountability measures that we have as a public school. If I tell you, it's the Wild West.
And they don't have the brick and mortar, they don't have the expenses
Right,
that
right.
we have.
Yeah, I mean, they issue somebody a laptop and charge us $27,000 a year. We issue them a laptop and we charge them, it costs us $3,500 a year. And we use the same provider. We use Pearson as the provider, and one of the biggest cyber charters in Pennsylvania uses Pearson, just like us, and they can charge $20-some thousand, and we can do it for $3,500. It's the biggest crime going on right now in Pennsylvania in terms of funding. I mean, they could instantly put millions of dollars in every school budget without raising the state budget 1 cent. Just by saying that's not allowed anymore. You guys get all that. When you get your kids back, they can go either come back to our brick and mortar school or they can come to our cyber, and we would have $1 million back in the budget, and all this would look a lot rosier with $1 million laying in our lap that came back to where it should be.
And we can't bring outside students in the live program?
No, we don't. No.
We can't, or we don't?
Oh, we don't right now because most school districts have started one because everybody fought back just like we did, and if we didn't have ours, gosh, imagine where we'd be,
I was going to ask in lieu of legislation, is there anything we can do to attract those families back to brick and mortar?
What we found is about 7% of kids who have left to go to one of those cyber charters, about 7% of those are basically recatchable. That's it. The other 93, once they go, the statewide study found that 93% once they go, they're not coming back because the kid that doesn't want to get up and his mom's tired of fighting with him just gives in, and lets him stay home in his pajamas and do his schoolwork. So 7% statewide.
We are working on a proposal for some different options for our cyber school to add different levels to it to bring back some kids. So there's some possibilities there.
Well, I just, for example, in Oklahoma, I know there was they created something and it was kind of out of necessity because they had a lot of students who were failing and they were going into cyber school to try to bridge that gap.
Right.
But it was a program that was to catch those kids and they just basically came to school and did cyber school in a classroom with a physical teacher who could assist.
And that's the way our alternative program works in the afternoon program too.
Yeah.
The kids come in, but there are teachers there to assist them, even though it's an online program. And we're looking at a host of options because our cyber program is rigorous. Our cyber program is at the level of a college prep type high school.
Yeah.
So we're looking at other options, because just like there are kids that do college prep and there are kids that are local track in our high school, we're looking to see, can we have multiple difficulty level tracks of cyber, because we think that might attract some more kids to come home from those very expensive outside charters that are super easy.
I know some of the students that go to cyber charter here wind up coming back to brick and mortar because they missed the
The social aspects.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had some success with kids too. Kids who struggled in the brick and mortar, getting up at 6:30, catching the bus, who have come into our cyber. And I don't know if last year or 2 years ago, there were 6 kids that walked at graduation because it saved them. So it was totally worth the investment to have our own program to help those kids.
I also think it's very important to look at the aspect of bullying now, even in our early elementary grades, because I am aware of parents who have pulled their children out for the fear of bullying, or they feel there's bullying, even though we may not know that there is.
Yeah, I
So
agree with parents.
there's a few more aspects other than just not wanting to get out of your pajamas in the morning.
Right. But a lot of time, I mean, there's a whole multitude. I mean, sometimes, it could be, it could be anything from kids needing to work. It could be a teen pregnancy. There's a multitude of family issues that could cause it's a viable option. Look how many people are doing online college. So it's clearly working for, different sectors.
We've had kids that are chronically ill too,
Mhm.
cyber, or that have emotional issues. So if there are, it does.
And several years ago, we looked into attendance issues at the high school level. And one of the things we discovered was that depression from parents, they were the ones who couldn't get out of bed in the morning. It wasn't necessarily that the children didn't want to get out. So somehow offering assistance to that situation, which I would hope would be discovered through some kind of survey or guidance counselor communication.
Well, that's opening Pandora's box, and that's a systemic issue here in Pike County because there really isn't there's not enough service providers.
Right.
So.
But if we could help them
That
get
would
their
be
children
great.
up in the morning and get them to school.
Yeah.
If they can't drive them to the bus stop, maybe we could
And
have
as soon
volunteers.
as a kid talks about cyber, we have them have that conversation with their guidance counselor of what's attractive to you, what are the issues you're having, what's attractive about cyber, would you consider our program as opposed to an outside program? And we think that there's a lot, as Maria said, we think there's some kids that we could really recapture if we have some different options, more than just the college prep level. If we can have some different tiers, we can have different categories of kids, it might be more attractive for them to come home. So it's good that they get a DV diploma, but it's also a huge cost saving for us.
Don, are we getting any help from our state senator on this, or is she?
She walks a very tough rope there because it's her leadership that is very much in favor of cyber schools, and she's a big public education proponent. So she's taken a lot of beatings on our behalf, and she's been very good to us, But there are a group of senators in Northeast PA who are very pro public education, but they're in the minority right now. In terms of their caucus. It's more the suburban Philly people that have a lot of clout. And they're the ones that are taking huge donations from the cyber programs. Huge.
Hopefully they vote for us and not with their caucus.
I was at a business managers meeting who had a roundtable with the local legislators, more primarily from the Lehigh Valley area. But I found that this year, much more than other years, they have an ear on it because I think they know they're getting beat up pretty good. So I'm hoping that something comes out of the legislation. I hope, obviously it'd be great if you have your own cyber, then if the parents want to go someplace else, then they can pay it. But if we can, that would be the best of them all. But even if they did something about that formula cost, it's absurd, the cost that the formula drives out, that if they fix that also. And they were thinking about just doing a flat amount based upon the actual cost, even from those cyber schools, my understanding
Right.
is. So, which would end up saving substantial money. But Republicans and Democrats, both at that roundtable, both seem to be more interested in trying to do something than ever before that I saw. So let's hope something comes.
Yeah, I
of
think
it.
we're at a tipping point because so many districts are struggling financially. And here's a way to put literally millions back into school budgets with a vote. They don't have to find any more money, they just have to repurpose it, so that's why it seems like we're really at a tipping point, and PSBA and PASA and PSEA are all united on this. In fact, I'll be in Harrisburg on Monday for a lobby day. And there's so many of us going, they just had to change the location for where we're having our morning meetings. It's PSBA, PASA, PSEA, PAIU, all the major entities for education are united around this. So it really feels like there's a lot of momentum. So fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Both of you and your teams.
Sure.
The budget every year is so user friendly, I think,
Thanks.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
And I am sorry, but I need to excuse myself in meeting, so.
Everybody? All right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting held on March 21st, 2019?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The easiest one.
You're gonna change the magic word? I'll go with that.
All right, guys. Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. And now we will move to the student representative report. And Sarah.
Hello. So there's definitely a lot to cover this month. We have a lot of events happening. So to start off, we have the music department. So through April 5th to the 7th, we had students, teachers, and administrators attend the PMEA conference. So we had 4 of our seniors, which are Brian Lee, Esther Lee, Paul Torres, and Theo Bookie, attend the event, and they performed in All-State, All-East Orchestra and All-State Jazz Band. And then Superintendent Dr. Bell received the Outstanding Superintendent Award there, which was really nice to see because it was the first recipient in Northeast PA to ever receive an award. And this event has been going on since 1988, so congratulations. And then also, Dr. Bell mentioned that he's going to be going to Harrisburg on Monday, and along with Dr. Bell, there's going to be the music students performing at Harrisburg as well.
The end of the time at the Capitol on Monday morning. So
Yeah. And then we have the extracurricular. So with Scholastic Bowl, they attended the IU20 tournament and they won at that tournament. So now they're going to be advancing to states, which is tomorrow in Harrisburg. And then if you guys want to tune in from April 29th to May 16th, their competitions are going to be televised. So you guys should check them out. So then we have Model UN, which is hosted by Mr. Nielsen. And he took the students to the Lycoming College, which happened on April 5th. And we had 3 of our seniors, which were Matt Chabuk, Emily Jacobus, and Roger Samuer. And they all received the Superior Delegate Awards in that club. And then we have HOSA, which attended their state competition April 3rd through the 5th in Lancaster. And we had 2 of their teams and an individual who advanced to the national level, which is going to be in Orlando. So super exciting. And then we have FBLA, who just went to Hershey April 8th to the 10th for their states event. And we had our FBLA president, Emily Jacobus. She received a scholarship at that event as well. So it's nice to see for that. And we have our officer team, which is compiled of 5 officers, receive Outstanding Chapter Award all around. And we had 10 to 11 students that are advancing to nationals, which is going to be in San Antonio, Texas. We also have physics, which was seniors Nick Drago, Mike Chapman, Richard Albanese, Christian Secular, Nash Hamill, Blake Gearhart, and Noah Ergang, who attended the University of Scranton last week for a physics event. And we have the OM students that just came in, and we have the elementary schools as well that are advancing. But for the high school, we have the structured performance and vehicle teams that are going to be going to World from May 21st to May 25th in Michigan. And we also have the blood drive coming up, which is going to be next week on Tuesday. And it's Game of Thrones themed, where if you donate blood, you get a poster. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, definitely should donate blood anyway, but like, good. Also, for the newspaper, so we had the first, the previous one came out on April 1st, which was April Fool's. That's why it was flipped over if you guys saw that. It was an April Fool's joke. But the next issue is coming out actually next week on Friday. So prom day, we're going to have our 8th issue out. And to go along with that, we had our 2nd annual prom proposal contest that just closed April 19th. We received 18 submissions this year, and we just had our first set of judging today. So we're going to have the second set Monday, and then everything will be finalized, and we'll keep you guys updated with the winners. So for first place, the winner would receive a free set of prom tickets, which doesn't include our after prom. And then second place gets a free school gift card, and third place gets 2 DV magnets. So, yep. And then for us journalism students involved with the newspaper, and then students that just took journalism this year that are going to be in journalism on staff next year, are going to be attending Wilkes University tomorrow for the Tom Bigler conference. And it's really exciting for us to go because it's our tradition every year. And we actually submit pieces that we put together, if we have page layout or a business feature or a news story, we can submit those. And, we're going to see the results tomorrow for that. So that's super exciting for us. And for drama, we have tomorrow through Sunday, we have the play going on, which is Mary Poppins, which is going to be Sarah Hawthorne. And then we have Ian Murch is Bert. And then we have Sarah's sister, who is going to be playing Jane Banks. And we also would like to take a minute to, just see all the hard work they put for stage crew as well for designing all those, it's countless hours for months that they stay after to put those through. And to go along with tomorrow night, if you guys are going to the play, which you definitely should, there's going to be the art show, which is when the students have their tables all set up. And that's going to be, they'll be at their tables tomorrow, but they're going to be set up all throughout the weekend. So especially for seniors, it's a really exciting event for us. If you're involved in art, and it's just nice to see their tables and everything. So we have that going on as well. And we also have, just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Let me see. Okay. So we have May 1st next week. We decided for students to wear their college gear since May 1st is decision day. So, yep, everybody's going to be wearing their college apparel next week. And then for the May 2nd, students who are in AP level classes, they're going to be attending a breakfast during first period just to acknowledge all the hard work that's been going on throughout this year. And the next day, we have career day, which students can sit on lectures that they signed up for. So I remember sophomore year, we didn't remember last meeting, but after we left, we just we're oh my gosh, we know what that is. So I remember sitting in on an event with a guy that was presenting for a newspaper because I was interested about that. And then there's one with criminology. So that's what the students can sit in on. And there's one for education and other careers. And then last but not least, there's also prom May 3rd, which is next week. And we're going to have it at Kalahari once again. And we have the after prom experience open to all students that signed up. And that's going to be going on till 5 a.m. So we have the water park with that and the arcade. So it's super exciting for us to look forward to. I don't even know. I'm going to be asleep super early, catch up on my sleep for that day. But yeah, it's a really fun event. And then I forgot about the sports, but we have baseball, which is at 7-2 right now. And then softball, they had 3 wins last week. And they're stepping up to the plate with their batting. It's getting really better, I've heard. And they have games coming up as well this week. So then for girls lacrosse, they're at 5-1, and they played and defeated North Pocono today. And they had another game as well coming up today. So then we have also boys volleyball and lacrosse are performing amazingly right now. And we have boys tennis, who Thomas Reese is doing really well this season with his singles. And track and field just attended Icebreakers 2 weekends ago. And over the spring break we just had, they attended Shippensburg, and they have Lock Haven coming up in their districts. And then Darren Ook is excelling it with his running. And then Noah Sorrell is in high jump, definitely doing well. And Lena is distance. So we've had a nice season so far. We're mid-season, so yep. Any questions, by the way?
Sorry.
That was as thorough as the budget report.
I was trying not to miss anything. I was like, oh yeah, but you guys should come to the play tomorrow. It's gonna be going on the whole weekend, so
And the art show is incredible.
yeah, it's
Seeing the
really,
artwork, it just blows your mind. It's
really, yeah. And then John's brother actually has like a bunch of pieces submitted in the art show, so you guys should look at them.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
As usual, you could stay, go.
All right. Thank you.
All
Happy
right.
she could stay or happy she could go?
I would stay, but you gotta wake up super early for that conference. Have a great night, guys.
Enjoy, thank you. All right, are there any comments on the administrative reports and the attendance reports? No comments? Any comments on the financial reports? And we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Well, I promised to be brief since the budget presentation was long and Sarah took about half my stuff. So I couldn't announce it at the last meeting, but you probably have heard, but we were recognized again for the 6th year in a row for the best communities in education across America. So that's really great. 6 years running. The high school was recognized by Project Lead the Way, which I mentioned during our tours of the construction project. Project Lead the Way starts in middle school tech ed and then it leads all the way up to engineering 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the high school. And we were one of only 2 high schools in the state of Pennsylvania that have been recognized 2 years in a row, back-to-back years. Our world language, which used to be called foreign language, now it's called world language, was recognized by the state Modern Language Association with the Global Word, which is a level of excellence for our overall world language program. We won that, I think, is it every 2 years you've been in? So now we're on the roll now, we're winning it multiple times in a row. And last but not least, FBLA, last year was an amazing milestone in that we were recognized as the #1 chapter in Pennsylvania, and now we did it again 2 years in a row. So it was mind-boggling to do it once, but to do it 2 in a row is truly incredible. So it's that time of year again where we get to enjoy all these cool things that the kids are doing. Really, it makes you really proud to be here. That's all I have for us, sir.
Thank you. All right, may I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to accept the bills for payment, which include the general fund, cafeteria fund, debt service, internal service fund, capital reserve fund, and the 2017 construction fund?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Now we'll move on to personnel items. May I have a motion to approve the personnel items, including resignations, appointments, extension of bereavement, change of status, and change of effective date?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
John, could you tell us a little bit about the person that's gonna be taking the principal position? up in
Yeah,
Lawrence?
yeah. We had a really nice group of candidates. First round interviews, they're done at the building level with Vicki and members of her staff. And then the top 3 were sent up here to interview with the cabinet. And it was a hard choice. It was a really hard choice. We really struggled back and forth with 2 very, very good candidates. One who was an assistant principal and one who was a sitting principal. And we're happy that on this docket tonight is Mr. Vito Quaglia, he was a teacher here for 6 years in the 1990s, and then has been a principal at Wyoming area for the last 17 years. And we were able to get him to come back. So we're really, really pleased to get a veteran and not have to train a newbie again. So it's we have a lot of new faces around, so it's nice to actually get someone who's a sitting principal.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries, and we will be moving into an executive session to discuss student issues. We will be returning. Can I have a motion to move? Sorry. Can I have a motion to move into executive session? Second. All those in favor? No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. We'll move on to items for approval. May I have a motion to approve the additional volunteers as per the attachment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the change to the 2018-2019 school calendar as follows? May 24th, 2019, no school. June 13th, 2019, no school. And I don't think I approved that. That'll just move up the last day of school for the students up to June 12th, teacher workday to June 13th, graduation to June 14th, and then if there are any emergency closings that should occur now and between now and June 12th, May 24th and June 12th will become regular school days as needed. Is there any discussion on that?
Then get a motion.
Oh, can I get a motion on that?
Motion.
Sorry.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I know lots of constituents will be very happy.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Now may I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 4000378 for 180 days with the right to reapply after 90 days if stipulations are met?
Second.
And then there's no discussion there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 10008627 for 90 days with the right to reapply after 45 days if the stipulations are met?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Now may I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 10008154 for 90 days with the right to reapply after 45 days if stipulations are met?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Now may I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 10009799 for 90 days with the right to reapply after 45 days if stipulations are met?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 1001238 for 90 days with the right to reapply after 45 days if stipulations are met?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student 2018-2019 10005890 for 90 days with the right to reapply after 45 days if stipulations are met?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Okay. Pass that. Now, may I have a motion to approve the additional Delaware Valley adult and continuing education courses and instructors for summer 2019 as per the attachment?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. Now, may I have a motion to approve the change orders for the CTE addition and renovation projects as listed?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion on those?
Yes, Corey.
Yes.
If Jack were here, he'd probably give us a very thorough explanation. So is there someone else who will step up to that? Especially the paving one.
Yeah, anything above 10,000
Yeah.
especially.
Paving, here, the paving near the auto shop, the 19. The southeast corner of the auto CTE, the elevation is about 30 inches higher when we started. That used to be a grassed area. And to make that flow together with the overhead door ramps and around the riverside of the building, we had to do some excavation, bring in material, and prep it for asphalt, which we did over the weekend. It was the man on.
You can walk around that corner, there used to be a big drop off. Because like I said, it used to just drop right off into grass, but because we added the extra bay, it used to be more of a, now we lost the gradualness. It just dropped off because it was so close now to the bus circle that comes around because the building came out to meet it. That was just one of those things that had to be fixed for safety.
They actually worked Easter Sunday all day to do the excavation. We did put the asphalt down in front of the overhead doors on Monday, so we could be back in business for classroom activity on Tuesday.
And the butterfly valves?
That was a miss by the engineers. It's more than just butterfly valves. Butterfly valves keep the water going the direction they want it to, so it doesn't backflow. There's plumbing involved there, equipment, and the valves. It's a miss by the engineer.
And Bill, how are we on the agency fund? But these change orders?
These bring it up to about 230.
Okay.
I know we have some other pending ones though, but we're hoping to get through it, staying within the contingency.
I think we'll be on the contingency even with the backhoe.
Let's shoot for that. Even with the backhoe.
My name isn't Trump, but it's below budget and ahead of time.
Even if he has to go do the work himself.
There'll be a for sale sign on that backhoe.
It's for rent.
All right, are there any other questions on those? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 paper supply bid through the Northampton Monroe Pike County Joint Purchasing Board as per the attachment?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Brian, this is usually when you express your disappointment.
I was gonna say us. I say it every year. We
I thought you were gonna do it.
We ought to be using Thunder Mifflin. Maybe Dwight didn't get a good bid in on time.
All right, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objections, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the resolution supporting the statewide cyber charter school funding reform as per the attachment?
Second.
And John, could you talk a little bit about that for
I feel strongly about it, but I just think it's something that we really need to do because we're spending a lot of money we don't need to spend.
Absolutely.
The first one talks about the funding formula. What it shows is it shows the regular ed tuition paid by districts to cyber schools, special ed paid by district to cyber schools, and the total tuition paid by district to cyber schools. And it shows our numbers, and it shows the astounding numbers. Like we said, we talked about $1 million that we're working out. Regular ed and special ed students that are going to outside cybers. And it says, whereas the average total cyber charter school tuition payment made by the district in this example year was $926,000, with an average tuition rate for a regular ed student at $11,309, and the average tuition rate for a special ed student attending a cyber charter school was $24,000, with a maximum rate charged by one institution of $48,000 per student. More than 390 school districts in Pennsylvania were forced to pay more than $20,000 per student. That's 390 out of 500 are paying over $20,000 a student for attending cyber charters. So now the resolution says, now therefore be it resolved that Delaware Valley School Board urges its elected officials to support legislation that corrects the tuition for regular and special education to cyber charter schools so that it be based on the actual cost of educating their students and relieves the financial burden on school districts and local government.
Is there any other
Can
discussion?
I ask a question concerning that? Remember the voucher program? That was to a charter school possibly. What would the district's payout would have been for a tuition to a brick and mortar charter school? And As relation to this, I mean, it sounds.
Because it's in the ballpark, I mean, right? It sounds like it's a big.
Well,
Charter school has to be in the district.
And it has to be approved by the district, by the board.
But it would have been the equivalent of a tuition here.
Not necessarily, what they do is they would prorate it based on a formula based upon their staff, what they're paying their staff. Similar, they'd have to develop a budget and then bill back to the districts, correct, Bill?
Yes.
Based upon that.
And,
Wow.
But there is no, and there are several counties.
Charter schools, so.
Yeah, and there are several counties in like Bucks and like outside of Philadelphia that have multiple brick and mortar charters as well as this whole issue with the cyber charters. So they're really hammered because they have brick and mortar charters, and then they have also.
I would think the tuition to a brick and mortar would not be close to the equivalent.
I don't believe it's that much, but I don't know exactly. And that was a big thing 15, 20 years ago to develop.
Yeah, the closest one we have around here is in Bethlehem. And Bethlehem's the one that spends 10 million between regular charter and cyber charter, because they have a big brick and mortar in Bethlehem that, I think their theme is around dance. And so that's why they're paying, they take it on the chin more than anybody else.
Probably be more accountability with the brick and mortar though, I mean.
They still get away with stuff that we're not
Really?
allowed to do, yeah. But at least, you would hope.
What a hole in the system.
But the nice thing about that is that charter has to be approved by the local school board in order for them to get a charter. So there's limited control, but there's still a control.
And what compounds this matter is they can make a student special education without notifying the school district other than sending them the first page of an IEP. So there's students who are general education students at Delaware Valley who go to an outside cyber school and miraculously become special education, and we get billed at the special education rate, and we have no say in that.
A couple of years ago, we had a student who was a sophomore, he'd been with us since kindergarten, and they miraculously got him an IEP for speech. He was in 10th grade, and now the cost goes, through the roof. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. We can only hope that we're at that tipping point where people just said enough's enough.
Sir, can we just get your name for the minutes, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. Martin Gurry.
Thank you.
I could retract that whole question. This is spelled wrong.
Now it's permanent. Thank you. All right. So all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Now may I have a motion to approve the resolution supporting Senate Bill 34 and House Bill 526 for districts providing their own cyber learning programs as per the attachment. And really this one just says if we provide a cyber academy, our students in district would have to come to us rather than to the private cyber academy.
And in here,
Motion.
Motion. Second. Thanks, Julie.
a few years back, 2016, 2017, the amount of money that public school districts paid to cyber charters was $463 million. That's $500 million of taxpayer money going to cybers.
Tomorrow morning, Corey and I are gonna build a cyber school. See it, right?
I'll be the CEO.
I was just gonna say, I'll get in on that.
Got a Chromebook.
All right. Is there any other discussion on that? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. Now may I have a motion to approve the board meeting dates for the 2019-2020 school year as listed?
So moved.
Yes, Al.
Is there a reason why you do the school visits in the fall as opposed to spreading them out throughout the, like doing one in the spring? I mean, I know it used to be Dingman's was always in December and the meeting got canceled because it would snow. But I mean, now you've got them all right back to back.
Yeah.
Is there a reason maybe spreading?
They used to be spread all over the place, and when we got into budget, we were doing PowerPoints and lugging boxes and everything in the spring, it became a real pain.
Gotcha.
I think it was either March or April, we used to go to Shaola. And then we said, well, then we used to enjoy going to Dingman's because we used the cafeteria, and it was so big because we would recognize the fall sports championship teams in a big room because it's hard to do it here. And then weather. And then we said, oh, let's be smart, we'll move it to November. And we had weather in November too. So we said, forget it, move Dingman's earlier and we'll juggle around and move DVES later, but let's go to all three of them at the beginning of the year as kind of a kickoff. Go around and see all the campuses and hurry up and do it before it snows. We probably jinxed ourselves for God knows.
Snow in September, Nancy. Yeah, right.
And Ally, it's also nice too, I mean, the faculty and staff of those districts, any new ones come to the meeting.
You know, I like
It's
going to
nice
school, I
meet
just
all.
wonder why they were all right. That was all.
Any other discussion on that?
Yeah, we do have one mistake, I just caught it, I'm sorry. The October 24th should be Dingman Delaware Middle School Library, not Dingman Delaware.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. May I have a motion to approve the board policies as listed 1 through 22?
Motion.
Bidding.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no objection, the motion carries. All right, now we'll move on to other business. First from the board.
I'm going to pass around some literature from the IU from last evening's meeting. And I do have a question. I asked this of the board members who are in attendance at the IU and of Dr. Brennan. I was wondering if there was any kind of state funding or federal funding for districts who have students that are placed in residential settings, usually court ordered into residential settings. And she mentioned that there is something that Pennsylvania, there's a fund, a contingency fund, and that it's a very sketchy type of fund in that, you need to be the first one to apply, but even if you're the first one to apply, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will receive any funding to help with a costly situation. So I was just wondering, have you ever applied for any of our situations? And if not, can we look into that and see?
The answer is yes.
It never hurt to try.
We apply for it every year, but there is a formula, and they take, you build the cost per student based on, for example, the cost for an out-of-district place student, the cost of their program. If we're transporting that student, the cost of their transportation, related services that they have. Then you deduct a per student cost, then you deduct a high school rate or an elementary rate. And if you are above a certain number, then they recommend you submit an application. That number, after all of those deductions, is, I think last year it was $105,000. If the district is putting in $105,000, submit the application. And depending on what every other school in the district in Pennsylvania puts in, you may or may not qualify. We have not qualified in probably the past 6-7 years.
Okay.
We used to qualify.
For the upcoming budget with.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And it's also based on your per student cost. So this is an example of our per student cost happens to be low. So in that way, that hurts us a little bit, but it's also really good that we have a so, yes, so we are very well aware of it.
Sounds like it's very political.
Well, it used to be it was a first come, first served basis, and they don't do that anymore.
Okay.
They wait till the deadline and then they look at what school districts who have the most expensive students. And those can be students within your own school district, by the way, who have just very expensive programs and needs. So they just wait till everything's in, and then the kid with the most money, that district gets the most money, and then it just goes down from there, and there's a cap per district.
Thank you.
And then also, the board received a letter from Kyle Pasco's mom, Sharon. I'm not going to read the entire thing because I'll start tearing up. I've known the Marks family my whole life, since Pale days and everything like that. So they've been an asset to the community and everything. And so Sharon wrote a letter to the board explaining Kyle's involvement in the community and what she wants to do to kind of memorialize Kyle's absence from us, and to do that with scholarships for PV students moving forward. So Sharon is going to be, and her family are going to be hosting scholarship events here, hopefully on campus. And so that request will go to the administration to hold those events in late July. But again, board members, please read the letter. And if there's any questions or anything like that, we'll reach out. Thanks. Is there any other? Yes, Ally.
Are you done with the board? Okay, can you clarify, June 12th, is that a full day of school or is that a half day for the last day of school?
That's a half.
It's a half day?
Yeah, last
Thank
day
you.
is always half day, 11:15 and 12:15.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know I'll have the textbooks out for you to review on May 13th. I'll put them out, 8 o'clock in the morning, they'll be in the conference room. Thank you.
Right. So with no other business, the announcements for the next meeting schedule. The next meeting will be held May 9th, 2019, a work session at 7 p.m. here at the administration offices, with a work session the following week, May 16th, for the regular board meeting. Now, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or any objections? The meeting is adjourned.